Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2018 career mode here today for episode number 45 at the Chinese Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Bahrain Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, annotation in the top right. But coming into China then, some forecasts for maybe some rain at the start of this race, so it could be quite interesting, but it's going to be dry for qualifying. And going into this one, well, Bahrain was going to be a struggle. Obviously, we got saved by the safety car and what happened in that race, but we can't rest on our laurels. But I think our car should perform theoretically better around here than it did at Bahrain. Generally, it looked like from last season even, Alonso, actually both seasons 1 and 2, Alonso's AI has done very, very well around the Chinese Grand Prix. So I'm hoping now that I'm in the team as well, both of us can equally do well and try and push the team forward. Going into the weekend though, not many people upgrading in the middle of the field. You can see Mercedes make some updates along with Sauber, Williams, Toro Rosso up front. Red Bull make an update to go just ahead of Haas then as the best car on the grid, but we stay put along with Ferrari and Renault, and they're kind of a little mid-pack there. We're kind of forming almost. So let's just get into qualifying on Saturday and see how we do around one lap of the Shanghai circuit.
We'd like to welcome you from wherever in the world you join us today for this F1 qualifying session here in Shanghai, China. This has been an exciting track in times gone by, and typically it entertains the moment the lights go out.
We've seen in the past how tricky the first corner is. It's not an issue in practice and qualifying, but if you throw a lot of highly competitive drivers at it all at once, you've got an entirely different situation. The smarter drivers will be able to temper their approach and stay out of trouble, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
So pretty overcast conditions then on Saturday, so that kind of rain that's going to come on Sunday might be looming kind of right at the end of qualifying perhaps, but for now it's going to be all dry and we're just going to do our thing in Q1. So you saw there, that's actually the end of our first flying lap here actually, and we're going to continue on for a second flyer on the same set of tyres here, trying to get used to the circuit once again. Kind of like Australia, the car felt very heavy around this circuit. It wasn't really the case at Bahrain. Bahrain was actually pretty okay, the car was very nimble, certainly around here in the first few laps around this circuit. Like Australia, definitely compared to my Haas car, the car was feeling much heavier, and of course it would kind of feel heavier because I haven't done as many weight reduction upgrades to this car as I did to the Haas car. Of course, I've just been given this car that the AI have worked on for 2 seasons, and so I'm hoping that soon enough we can gain enough R&D points to get working on that. Kind of weird one for McLaren because I feel like every part of the car needs some attention. Obviously, we did the drag reduction update, but at the same time, I kind of also want to do some chassis weight reductions, but then at the same time, I also want to keep the engine power, updates going because we may as well. The engine's very fuel efficient, but we might want to add some engine power. So very, very odd. There's almost too many things for me to do, whereas with Haas, it was very, very clear that if I improve the chassis a lot, everything else can kind of go to the wayside a little bit. But with McLaren, there's kind of everything to improve will just make the car better in every kind of way. I guess is the kind of way as it is in real life, in a way, I guess. So we move into Q2 then quite nicely, and we do eventually get into Q3 as well with that lap time. That lap time in Q2 was a lot better than what we had in Q1. You can see I'm actually ahead of Alonso. Alonso topped the timesheet in Q1. Here he dropped off a little bit, but good to see I could match him. And so for the first time this season then, we get into Q3 with both Haas cars there as well. So maybe for now we won't get that glitch in qualifying now where the Haas cars don't actually have their actual race pace. And if you're looking close enough as well, you would have seen Sebastian Vettel was actually knocked down Q1. He starts down in P16 then for tomorrow's race. Both Mercedes out of Q2, and so it's a very odd looking top 10 session there, and the only one in the top 10 actually made it through into Q3 on soft tyres was Daniel Ricciardo. So that'll be interesting to see, if there's rainfall tomorrow, that won't mean a lot, but if there's not rainfall and the indicator, which we know in the past has lied before, and it doesn't rain, then Ricciardo could be in a very good position because all of the rest of us have qualified on ultra soft tyres. So anyway, we're on our second flying lap there here in the top 10 shootout. The first lap I did was on a worn set of ultras because I had actually burnt up already all my previous sets, and so this second run in Q3 was my one and only clean run on fresh tyres that you get given for Q3 specifically across the line. Then, even though we do gain a decent amount of time on that first flying lap, it's not good enough to be any higher than P7, although that is my lucky number, P7, so let's hope it's a good one for us tomorrow. Alonso does outdo me, but only by a couple of tenths there, so I'm not too disappointed. You can see Grosjean there, so close to Aaron Ricciardo, so nice to see finally the Haas actually showing its true pace there, and pretty much nothing separating Ricciardo and Grosjean on the front row, but Ricciardo, he was the only one who qualified on the soft tyres, so he's on pole position. So if it doesn't rain tomorrow for Sunday, it could be a very, very good race for him. But let's just get into the intro then and see how it goes and see if we're going to have some rain to start off with.
Ever since the Sauber of Felipe Massa passed Jenson Button into turn 1 at the very first Chinese Grand Prix in 2004, Shanghai has consistently provided close racing and extraordinary memories. It's where Lewis Hamilton effectively lost the title in his rookie year, and it's where Nico Rosberg claimed Mercedes' first win of the modern era in 2012. The ever-tightening turns 1 and 2 will prove tricky in the slippery conditions here at Shanghai, and anyone that slides wide will lose a lot of time getting back on track. Turn 14 should still be the best place for overtaking, but we'll have to see some improvement in the weather before the drivers can take advantage of that DRS assistance. Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Daniel Ricciardo starts from pole position today, with Romain Grosjean alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen and Magnussen. The engineer, Perez, Leclerc and Nico Hülkenberg, Ocon, Ericsson, Carlos Sainz and Hamilton, Gasly, Vettel, Lance Stroll and Sergei Sirotkin. Hartley and Valtteri Bottas starts from the back of the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out.
Right, so here we go then on the grid for the Chinese Grand Prix, and there is actually some rain here at the very start of this race, but you can see on the strategy indicator, the engineer thinks that we should be starting on the dry tyres. It seems like the entire grid is going to start on dry tyres, and the FIA think it's fine to start on dry tyres, so the rule still applies. We have to start on the tyre we qualified in Q2 for, so therefore most of us are going to be starting on ultra soft tyres, even though it definitely is very, very damp out there. So it's going to be a very odd situation, a very shaky and nervous start, and we could either gain massively or lose massively. So let's get into it then, and we'll just see how the strategy plays out after this rain period, because I honestly don't know how this is going to go then as we go to 5 red lights then to the Chinese Grand Prix, round number 3 of Season 3 here for the F1 2018 career mode. 5 red lights are out and we're underway, and it's a horrendous start there for Raikkonen, a good one for Magnussen, myself. Alonso gets bogged down a little bit there, and Grosjean had a fantastic start down the inside of Daniel Ricciardo. A little bit of contact made between me and Grosjean. Alonso's managed to find his way past Ricciardo as well, so at the moment it looks like those soft tyres aren't working out for him. We're going to try and go right around the outside of the Aussie man there, trying to find the grip, just, you know, tapping on the throttle, trying to suss out where the grip is, where all the grip levels are like, because visually you can see it's very, very damp, so that got me very nervous indeed to just plant the power down and watch the rear tyres spin. At the moment though, Grosjean, Alonso, then myself in P3, Ricciardo behind, Verstappen then, and then I think it's Kevin Magnussen, and look at that, Alonso's had a shocking exit. What on earth is going on here at the start of this Grand Prix? So odd there. You would think that none of us would have grip, but for some reason I found a lot of traction compared to Alonso there. I don't know if he was just really taking it very, very easy and very chilled out, but at the moment it's a very, very odd situation, almost like I want to say Brazil 2012, where, you know, everyone was still on dry tyres despite it raining and looking quite damp. And now, after I make a mistake myself, Ricciardo now is down my inside. We're going to go a little bit defensive, give him the room on the outside of that corner, but we'll squeeze him out eventually on the long right hand as we slingshot onto the back straight and remain in P3 for now. And as we go on, I think it should be getting drier and drier, because you saw on the weather forecast indicator the rain droplets were only there for the start of the race, and then it clearly said it was going to kind of cloudy / kind of sunny conditions maybe. So I think it's going to get drier as we go on, but at the moment still got a few rain droplets down the screen, and look at that now. Verstappen is the one that's going to come and try and overtake us. Meanwhile, you've got Alonso going right around the outside of Grosjean for the race lead there. So both McLarens on the outside of the hairpin. Alonso to take the lead, me defending from Verstappen. So Verstappen on the ultra soft tyres has managed to overtake Ricciardo. So Ricciardo's decision to go on softs at the moment is not working out, because in these slippery conditions the softer compound is working better. As we go across the line though, Verstappen is clearly a lot faster than me at the moment, but we're just about going to hang on to this there, just inches away from making horrendous contact with him into turn 1, but we just managed to do it, kind of skate through and drift through turns 1 and 2, and we're going to be up into P2 as Grosjean, you saw there, actually ahead of us, has made a pit stop. So now Alonso leads. It's a 1-2 for McLaren, and I don't really know what Grosjean's come in for. It surely can't be Inters, so I think Grosjean's gone early for a 2-stop on dry tyres, because it can't be for Inters, because I'm pretty sure the rain's going to stop kind of falling pretty much within 1 or 2's lap time. So it's got to be for the soft tyres probably. Here for us, I don't actually know what we're doing still. I don't know if I'm going to try the very audacious 1-stop that we did in Season 1, Ultra to the medium tyre, or do we do the 2-stop? I just really can't tell at the moment how we're going to play this one. For now, we'll just try and survive and defend against Verstappen and keep the car on the road as we move later to the end of that lap. Alonso's in, Verstappen's in, so it looks like at least those guys are going to be trying the 2-stop this afternoon. We carry on, and Ricciardo, the guy clearly doing a 1-stop, is up into 2nd place. So I think for now, I'm just going to keep going on and see what the pace is like and see what the weather is saying, and we'll just for now be on a 1-stop, and obviously if we have to, we'll have to switch it onto a 2 if we can't make it work. But you can see there Alonso onto soft tyres. He comes out the pit lane. He'll have a lot of traffic to contend with, because I think the second half of the grid, pretty much most of them selected the soft tyre to start the race with, so there's going to be a lot of guys trying a 1-stop ahead of Alonso. But to be fair, right now as it stands, Alonso's decision to come in then has worked out, because he's actually ahead of Grosjean, so he's jumped Romain Grosjean with an overcut strategy effectively. But meanwhile, at the moment, it's myself leading from Daniel Ricciardo. 3rd place is going to be Lewis Hamilton, followed by Sebastian Vettel. So both Hamilton and Vettel were way down the order on the starting grid, but they gained quite a bit there by all the guys on ultra soft tyres pitting in, and they started on the soft tyres, both Hamilton and Vettel. But I would assume eventually that Ferrari will be overtaking the Mercedes, and then behind them you've got that entire kind of second half of the field, like I mentioned, that all started just like Vettel and Hamilton on soft tyres. So that's a whole lot of traffic that Alonso, Magnussen, Verstappen's all going to have to try and contend with to get through in this race. Here we go then. I said Vettel was going to eventually probably overtake Hamilton. That Mercedes car is so poor now in Season 3, and that Ferrari is round. Simple DRS move on the main straight there, and Vettel is up into P3, Hamilton down to P4. As you can see, we chuck through the last corner, and we're carrying on at the moment in this Grand Prix on lap number 5, purple lap time. Obviously everyone is going to be going faster and faster as we all try and get to grips with this rapidly drying track. And now it's going to be Carlos Sainz that is then past Lewis Hamilton on the very next lap then. So that Mercedes car really isn't performing well, and the Works runner gets past there. Meanwhile, behind, a big scrap between the Toro Rosso Williams and Valtteri Bottas there. The Williams down the inside of the Toro Rosso side by side. They're behind a Sauber car that's doing very well for itself. I think it's the Marcus Ericsson. But Bottas at the moment struggling even more than his teammate. I mean, but it's very weird to see Bottas unable to even overtake the Williams car just about as he tries to do it around the outside. I think that's Lance Stroll on his inside there. Now can finally the Finn get past the Williams car down the inside of the last corner there. Lock up though from Bottas, and here Bottas is taking Stroll wide, both of them off circuit, and Bottas parks it up there in the last corner to wait for the cars to go round, and so his race goes from bad to worse there. And so at the moment it's pretty much absolute misery for Mercedes on the pit wall. Toto Wolff will be screaming at himself and just banging the table with his fists as he has done previously in real life, and just the disarray of his team's race there at the moment. But now we move on to lap number 6, and here comes Ricciardo round the outside. I try my best to contend with him in the brake zone. Big lock up on the front right, and Ricciardo simply has the mid-apex grip around the outside. Of course, my ultra soft tyres, remember, are 2 compounds softer than Ricciardo's soft, so they're going to be wearing out so much faster than Ricciardo's, and this is the point in the race where his tyre strategy now is going to pay out. He's going to be the faster car despite me having the softer compounded tyre, because my tyres are now starting to go off, and I'm trying to stretch these because just like Season 1, remember, we need to try and take these as long as we can, otherwise the mediums aren't going to go the distance. The softs can go fine. The soft to medium strategy can do a 1-stop easy. The ultra soft tyre to medium is a very tricky strategy. You actually have to really nurse the tyres, and so at the moment I just don't have the pace. And now Sebastian Vettel is going to come down my inside on lap number 8, and you can just see in the brake zone there, I just do not have the grip to contend with him. I thought I could try and brake as late as he could, and I nearly went completely off circuit, and so Vettel pretty much scares me off the road there, and I'm down to P3, Vettel up into P2. You can see in the minimap the gap that Ricciardo's already got is up until about maybe 8 seconds already there, as now we've got Valtteri Bottas and Magnussen out of the Grand Prix. So 2 pretty big contenders, at least Magnussen's pretty big contender after the revamped performance of the Haas in qualifying there. And so we have to take a look at the replay of what happened there. It actually started a lot earlier. We've got this absolute no other way to describe it, but mega fight going on there. 8 cars in the same camera shot. Alonso and Magnussen going side by side. So at the moment, Magnussen trying to overtake Alonso. Alonso being held up by traffic of Verstappen, and then also the other cars. You've got Ericsson there on medium tyres going really long in this race then. Clearly, Alonso comes back at Magnussen, does well, and he's actually re-overtaken in there. So good work there from Alonso. Meanwhile, up ahead, Verstappen is round the outside then of Ericsson, and he locks up very badly on the front left, and Verstappen will find his way around the outside. Can Alonso have the traction? Yes, he will. And so he's going to go to the outside of the S section there. Can he actually manage to put it? Yes, he does, but he's tapped Ericsson round, and Ericsson T-bones Magnussen, Leclerc, and Magnussen, I think both Saubers are left stricken there. And oh my god! Valtteri Bottas has come in and absolutely pole drive Magnussen. Let's take another action replay shot of that. Magnussen parks it in the middle, and the Bottas has just come in and absolutely no-scoped him out of this race. So here's the onboard of Ericsson there, and that's all. That's quite controversial, actually. Alonso's directly, at fault of that. He should have left Ericsson way more room than he did, and he was the one who made Ericsson spin, and that was a bit of a domino effect then for everything you saw. And then this is just absolutely insanity. Magnussen parks it there, and Bottas just comes in and completely wrecks himself and Magnussen out of this Grand Prix. Spectacular crash, that is. A lot of carbon fibre flying there for Valtteri Bottas. Very, very odd situation there, especially from the off-board. Looks so dramatic with Bottas coming in. But yeah, that's a little bit controversial, because Alonso definitely was the reason that happened, and he could have left a lot more room to Ericsson. Like, he did not need to squeeze him that much into the apex. It's almost like he didn't see Ericsson was still there on the inside. So a little bit debatable. We'll see if the FIA in-game have given Alonso any kind of warning or penalty for that. I'll be surprised if they actually did, though, because a lot of the time they don't really do that for those kind of incidents where it's kind of almost like a racing incident. But for me, I think Alonso's got to be at fault a little bit there for causing that accident. But anyway, we're going to make our pit stop then eventually for the medium tyres. We've done a lot of good work, a lot of groundwork to keep these ultra soft tyres going as long as we did, but eventually it is time to come in. And we've got now 18 laps to go on these medium tyres, but like I said, because of that kind of grunt work we put in on the ultras, this should be no issue at all. And so Alonso at the moment is actually ahead of us on track, just ahead of Brendan Hartley there. But of course, Alonso on the soft tyres came in a lot earlier. He's on a 2-stop here. So once again, like Bahrain, Alonso's strategy may not be the best one, to be honest, that McLaren have put him on. And very, very weird. You know, he had such a brilliant strategy in Australia, and now not so much. And now we've got a safety car to add into it. So this might actually change some things around, because Verstappen going very, very slow. He's going to be the one that parks up there on the grass, you can see. And that's why the safety car's being called out, I assume. And so that, like I said, might change some things, because Vettel was out in the lead, due for his second pit stop. So now Vettel could get an effective free pit stop, because Ricciardo's already pit. Alonso's yet to pit, but I don't think he's going to pit this lap. And I've pit already. So Vettel's main two contenders were Ricciardo and myself. And Vettel now, from the lead of the Grand Prix, might have a good chance. Although, saying that, I think he's just put on ultra soft tyres. I think Ferrari have actually, Ferrari have put on ultra soft. All right, okay. Okay, Ferrari. I guess Ferrari, well, at least in game, they're true to form, true to life, because Vettel comes out in first place. Indeed, that free pit stops worked a treat for Vettel, because obviously he was in third place behind myself and Ricciardo. Eventually, obviously, he overtook me for second, but he was nowhere near Ricciardo. There was 8 seconds from Ricciardo to Vettel, and Vettel's now in first place. But crucially, Ferrari have put him on ultra soft tyres. Ricciardo's on mediums, Alonso's softs, I'm on mediums. So Alonso and Vettel have to pit again in this race to get to the end of this Grand Prix, whereas me and Ricciardo can go to the end now. So it will eventually be Ricciardo in first and myself in second once these guys make pit stops. So as we go on to the start then, and we're green for going racing again, we're ahead of Hamilton there. Very, very cold tyres though. You can see I was trying to heat up my tyres as best I could before we went green, and still through the last corner, the tyres weren't really biting in. For now, Vettel does lead Ricciardo, but for how much longer? You can see how much I'm struggling now at the moment with these very, very cold mediums, as we nearly go completely off circuit on the grass there and just about keep this ahead of Lewis Hamilton. I'm actually losing hand over fist there to Alonso. He's already got maybe about 2 seconds on me in just the restart of this race then. So very, very crucial the tyre temperatures are this year, especially on the safety car restart there. But eventually, like I said, Vettel will have to come in from those ultras, and he does. And so that is literally a race win, potentially, for Vettel, thrown out the window. And so Ricciardo now will grab an easy lead. Alonso's still second. I'm third. You can see the gap, though, from Alonso to me was ridiculous. Eventually, Alonso comes in, and so it will leave Ricciardo to be out there in so much. Look, that's Ricciardo going off your screen now. That's me in the background there. So Ricciardo's got a very easy time. And to be honest, if you just look at the R&D comparison chart, the Red Bull should comfortably have me in its back pocket, because the Red Bull car at this stage of the season is a much better car than McLaren. We still have a lot of work to do. So Ricciardo may just have a very easy victory under his belt. And meanwhile, Vettel and Alonso are stuck now in traffic. Obviously, Alonso is always going to have that, but still, the mind boggles at what on earth Ferrari are doing. And obviously, you know, if you saw the start of this season, you know, episode 43, you guys would have seen, obviously, the kind of backstory. I'm here at McLaren as a loan deal. I'm a Ferrari Academy driver, but Ferrari didn't feel like I was ready to make the step up yet to the full Scuderia team, so they allowed me to go on loan to McLaren, or any team I wanted. I chose McLaren, and at the end of this season, if they don't win the Constructors' title, I have to be given a seat in Ferrari. That's a contractual obligation there, and for now, Ferrari are making my job pretty easy of getting into that car next year, because they're making some pretty weird strategies. And so now you can see the scenes of Vettel trying to fight back through the traffic, although the traffic is fighting back because Leclerc has just re-overtaken. The senior Ferrari man has just been overtaken by the junior Ferrari man in the Alfa Romeo Sauber there. And so eventually Vettel will get that on the very next lap, but absolutely amazing scenes to see Leclerc re-overtake Vettel after he probably assumed was going to be an easy pass for him on that Sauber. So we now move on all the way to lap 23 then. So only a couple of laps left in this Grand Prix. You haven't seen too much of this actual stint, because nothing much has actually happened up until now. I've just been trying to protect the tyres. But now Hamilton is probably pushing a lot harder than I am, and he's coming to try and overtake me now with DRS there. So he's been keeping me honest this entire stint, and now he's actually finally trying to make it a prolonged attack here down my inside. We're on the inside now for the last corner. We'll squeeze him out, and Sergio Perez also might join the party. A little bit of a lock up there from my fellow Briton. So as we go onto the main straight onto lap 24, here comes Hamilton once again into turn 1, but there goes also Sergio Perez as well. It's going to be 3 wide into turn 1, and it's going to be oh so close between myself and Hamilton to the inside. We're just going to keep as tight as we can to this inside there, and then try and go drifting across to the other apex to keep P2 for now. But Perez does overtake Hamilton then, so now we've got the Force India to contend with, and obviously we know from previous races that Force India is very, very good in a straight line, and here he comes now. Perez on my outside. We're going to have to try and dive him back there, and we do so successfully. No contact made there between me and Perez. We just almost scared him a little bit off the racing line, and through the S section we hold our own there, and that's how you do it, Alonso, without squeezing him out and turning him to a T-bone there. Gave him the room into the S section, and just about managed to get that around the outside, rather than what Alonso did earlier, which is just pretty much pin the Sauber of Ericsson into the apex and spin him around. Speaking about Sauber and Alonso does get past this other Sauber of Leclerc a bit more, less dramatically than he did on Ericsson earlier in the Grand Prix. And so now we move back to our POV then. So at the moment it's Ricciardo, myself, Perez, Hamilton, Vettel and Alonso. That's the running order, and here comes Perez then trying to spoil the party though, and trying to take this P2 away from me. He's down around the outside of the hairpin. We're going to have to stick behind, but to be fair, the slipstream and DRS power on the main pit straight, it's so good that as long as I stick quite tight to the line here through the last corner, I should be able to easily re-overtake him here, because here we come now across the main line onto lap 26. This is down the inside of turn 1, and here we go. Just have to keep our guts into it and keep our foot down on the right hand side and keep our nose in, drifting through the second corner. Perez still there on the inside, so we have to take to the outside there, give him the room on the outside, but on the exit we'll get the power down much earlier. And now we look behind us briefly, we can see Perez going to try it once again on the outside. We go defensive to the inside there, go a little bit wide on purpose on the exit, try and wash out that racing line that we have and try and push him out, and we're going to keep P2 then quite successfully. And we're going to move on to focusing then on Vettel and Alonso, because whilst Perez was trying to overtake me and we had that fight, behind us was Alonso and Vettel fancying a pass on Hamilton. We obviously saw how slow Hamilton was going earlier on this Grand Prix. Now Vettel has overtaken him there. They're side by side. Alonso fancies it, maybe. Is he going to do it? Actually, he finally goes down the inside of both of them. Vettel with a double lock up there scares Hamilton off the road a little bit, but Alonso has done Vettel, and so Alonso's made a double overtake on Vettel and Hamilton there. That is quite a lot of World Championship championships. Alonso's just overtaken in one move down the inside of the hairpin, and in the background you can see Hamilton's under pressure now from Leclerc, as now Vettel goes back down the inside of Alonso here. You saw actually in the foreground was myself and Perez going side by side, so that was literally at the exact same point as we were fighting. They were having this great scrap here in tandem, and Alonso doing a bit of seesawing on the throttle and just about keeps ahead of Vettel then on those soft compared to medium tyres. Actually, I only just noticed that Vettel's on medium tyres, which is another bonkers strategy call from Ferrari. I don't know why they would strap on mediums for the end of this Grand Prix when he could clearly go to the end on soft tyres, unless he didn't have enough soft tyres left maybe in the race. But now on lap 26 on the end of it, you can see there we're trying to break the toe from Perez by sticking to the right and maybe trying to invite Alonso to attack Perez, because Alonso has closed up to Sergio Perez. So if Alonso could maybe try and snag P3, that'd be a very tasty double podium, P2 and P3 for McLaren today. You can see obviously Ricciardo, we haven't really mentioned him so far now for the rest of this episode, but he's literally been nowhere to be seen. He's like 15 seconds up the road or something like that. Really dominant performance here from the Aussie man at the Chinese Grand Prix. But here goes then Alonso on lap 27 on the back straight there with DRS open. But look at that, the Force India comes back with the straight line speed. It's got obviously naturally Alonso to the inside, Perez on the outside. Alonso does get it, but just like we did on Perez, Perez might have a good enough run through the final corner to re-overtake Alonso here. So that's the beauty of China. Really invites a lot of great racing, because the slipstream on the main pit straight is so great. And so here goes Perez with a copycat move to the one I made on him, and he's actually done it even better because he's already got ahead of Alonso and already parked the bus a little bit on the racing line there. Meanwhile, look at that, Leclerc has overtaken Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's genuinely slower than the Sauber now in this race, and he's fallen behind all the way down to P6, I think that is, as Daniel Ricciardo does win the Chinese Grand Prix. Confirmation there, but absolutely amazing stuff there to see a true demise of Mercedes this race. Bottas out the Grand Prix, Hamilton being overtaken by Force India and Saubers there, and Perez looks like, unfortunately though, for our team's sake, looks like Perez has held on to P3 there. Alonso just didn't have the straight line speed on the end of that last lap there, but come across the line for a pretty damn good personal P2 here. Another good podium for us, and a really good strategy, you know, to make that work, stretching the ultras to the medium tyres. Good Grand Prix here at the Chinese race.
It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top drawer to take the win for Red Bull today. And I have to wonder, Anthony Davidson, just what set them apart from the competition here.
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy and to stay out of trouble.
And I can see now the drivers are making their way out. We need Red Bull fighting at the front. They do an incredible amount for Formula One, and that's another winner's trophy heading back to Milton Keynes.
So for the championship, Red Bull these days are looking pretty damn strong there. A 1-2 at Bahrain, and today Ricciardo with a very great performance. Obviously, he did all the work on Saturday to qualify on those soft tyres. Inspired decision, because you know he was able to be one of the front runners who was able to make the easier one stop work. Obviously, I did the one stop, but my way was a lot harder, and so Ricciardo leads the way from Vettel to myself in the Drivers' Championship. Constructors-wise, we move ahead of Ferrari in second place, so that's really good for me to see. A bit of a smug grin on my face today as we overtake the Works Ferrari team, and Haas and Mercedes will be disappointed. Haas in a way, because obviously Magnussen got taken out not of his own accord really, and Grosjean kind of just lost out in that race by pitting so early in that Grand Prix. Frustrating to see after Grosjean was so close to Ricciardo in qualifying on the front row, and then of course Mercedes, like I mentioned, just a utter shambles of race really. DNF for Bottas, and then Hamilton in the end just dropping off. But actually, to say that, once again Renault will have a kind of a tough pill to swallow here, because remember they're pretty close to Force India and us at McLaren on the R&D chart, and yet they're behind Sauber on the points tally, and they're way down the order with not many points to show for it there. So they're going to have a lot of question marks then back at the base. But let's go into then the final questions from Claire after this race, and then we'll round out the episode.
Great work out there today. How do you think it went? You really cut your way through the field today. What was your strategy?
I could go probably all 4 ways about answering this question, but I'm just going to talk about how nimble the car was, I guess, especially in that opening stint was very, very nimble for sure.
We all underestimated you, didn't we?
Going to go a bit sportsmanship and say you underestimated the team as well. You know, once we do things together, things can happen. Obviously, you know, maybe they did at the very start compared to the R&D maybe.
Everything went your way today. It looked like you had a really good strategy for the race.
I'm going to say a good strategy, of course, you know, the one-stop ultra-soft tyre to mediums. It's all down to the chassis and the tyre wear, really, of the car there.
The weather was miserable today, but do you feel this was an advantage for you?
Obviously, the opening stint was a pretty mad one, actually, and, you know, that's what kind of separates the champions out there who can kind of drive in those very damp and tricky, slippery conditions on dry tyres.
Great. Well, that's everything.
And so that's going to be the end of the interviews then. We're going to go to the end of the episode with Alonso still actually leading the rivalry there. I'm actually also losing the rivalry to Perez so far. I think that's from qualifying, I think, in Q3 there. So still have to do some work there, and hopefully the updates that come to Baku can maybe help me try and finally out-qualify Alonso there, perhaps to try and get some actual credit on the teammate challenge. But then looking into then spending these R&D points at the end of this episode then for upgrades, I was looking through the engine, the aero, like I said earlier, pretty much every area of the car could be upgraded and improved. But in the end, I went back to the thought of the car felt very heavy at the very start of the weekend, and the car also felt very heavy at Australia as well. And so that's all down to the chassis weight. And, you know, maybe some of you guys don't agree with me, but I think this is going to be the right place for me personally to feel more comfortable with the car. I want the car to feel as light as possible, and so we're going to go for the ultimate chassis weight reduction. It's going to take a fair time to come in, so we're going to be waiting around for that upgrade, but it's going to be worth it once it comes in. So maybe take a little bit of pain after Baku of not having any upgrades until Monaco, but once that comes in, our chassis is going to fly. I mean, look at how much we're going to gain there on the right hand side there on that chart in green. So I think personally for me it's going to be worth it. So guys, if you have enjoyed this episode, hit that like button for me. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula content. I've been over home today, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.